Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Politics, the show on domestic politics on the Hindu's YouTube channel, where I, Nistula Hebbar, the national political editor of the paper, will kind of take you through the headlines of the week in domestic politics. Now, I have been missing episodes in the middle here and there, and last week I was absent, which is because I have been traveling a great deal, as you must have seen from the datelines on my stories in the Hindu lately. But this week I am kind of coming back with a sense of what this election is all about. Again, I'm not saying who's winning or losing, because that is up to the Election Commission to tell us on June 4th, but certainly about the issues and the kind of things that I found on the ground that are informing this election, many of which we did not think about when we went into these polls. Now, the Americans say that there are largely three kinds of elections. One is, of course, bringing back the steady ship, just getting back the incumbent to power. The second is to vote back the devil you know, where sometimes you kind of have a bit of sullenness and complaints against the government of the day, but you don't find the alternatives extremely appealing, and kind of vote back the government that had been in place for the last 5 years. And the final one is, of course, the vote for change, where the opposition mounts a credible alternative to the government in place. Now, the BJP and Prime Minister Modi are largely fighting an election based on the first two, which is there is nothing much wrong with the status quo and get back the government that has worked for you in the past, and we are the devil you know. Whereas the opposition is trying to get change. I don't think on an all India level they've been hugely successful in mounting that challenge, but I feel that some of the sullenness of the Indian public has reflected in BJP going to be losing some of the seats that it had won in 2019. It hopes to make up in various other parts of the states of the country, namely from the southeastern seaboard up to the east coast, up to Bengal. All of those things, of course, we will be talking about in detail once the results come out, and a lot of analysis then goes into what actually the results have been. As far as the narrative is concerned, this is very much Prime Minister Narendra Modi's election. It is based on the central premise of whether or not the people of India want to give him a third term at the helm, helping him to equal the record of India's first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, as being the only other Prime Minister to have got three successive terms, to be elected back for three successive terms. Within this big meta-narrative, I found there were three kind of mini narratives, or three sections of the voters who are going to be absolutely crucial to who wins these elections. And namely, the women, youth, and the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. This episode, I will be talking about all three sections in detail as to why I think they are going to be deciding who the next Prime Minister of this country is going to be. Well, it was in, when you first go into talking about the women's vote, it was in 2019, the 2019 Lok Sabha polls, that women for the first time in independent India surpassed men as voters. Women have had the vote in India since the 1952 elections, which was the first election held in independent India. We had universal adult suffrage. So therefore, the women of India got the vote right from the inception of the Republic. But it was only in 2019 that they surpassed men as voters. And while even before this reversal in electoral participation, some parties like Congress under Rajiv Gandhi, the AIADMK under Jayalalitha, Naveen Patnaik in Odisha, and Nitish Kumar in Bihar have wooed the woman voter. It is in the 2024 polls that their voting preference becomes crucial, and its variation becomes very interesting. Now, in various states, women are voting more than men, or in larger numbers, and not necessarily for the same party as another state. Now, in Karnataka, for instance, in the second phase of polls in 14 Lok Sabha seats, women outnumbered men in 5 seats. They have come out in large numbers, and observers feel that their support may be affected by the schemes by the Congress party led state government aimed at women, like the free bus travel and income support schemes. In Bihar, in the current 4 of the 7 phases of the polls in the state, turnout for women was 6.21% more than men in the first phase, which went up to an astounding 11.6% in the third phase to settle at a mean of about 8% in the fourth phase. The NDA, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and State Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, have been very careful about women-centric welfare policies, and in the past historically have gained, especially in UP and Bihar, they have gained an advantage in polls over the RJD in high polling among women. And the biggest example of that is the Bihar Assembly polls of 2020. Please go back, if you're interested in the subject, to look at the number of stories that have come out on how the women swung it in a tight election for the NDA. Even Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in his victory speech after that victory that it was Nari Shakti, or the blessings of the women of India, of Bihar, that had got the NDA, that government. Now, in the Hindi belt states, in fact, high polling by women in the last assembly polls has seemed to be an advantage for the BJP, like in Madhya Pradesh. In Odisha, the BJD, or the Biju Janata Dal, is banking on women enrollers, about 70 lakh of them, in self-help groups, etc., to give them a critical advantage in being elected back to power in the state for the 6th time. Now, the women's vote, therefore, has acquired the accoutrements of variations that were earlier accorded to the men's vote. Women are voting as a bloc, but not for the same party across the country. So this is a very interesting development, I feel, for electoral politics in India, and especially has been brought into sharp relief in these elections. Now, we come to the youth and the first-time voters. Now, another category of voters considered above caste lines are the youth. Unemployment, specifically the serial linkage of exam papers pertaining to government recruitment for jobs, is an issue simmering with angst. I've traveled a lot, and even in eastern UP, in a seat called Machli Shahar, which is right adjacent to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's parliamentary constituency of Varanasi, I met people who were BJP voters who had expressed angst about the fact that there are very few government vacancies that have been opened and for recruitment, and when the exams were held, papers were leaked, and unemployment was an issue. The jobless growth, I mean, they pointed to good infrastructure. They said we're getting regular electricity, roads are extremely good, as you can see, but there are no jobs that are coming in, and that was one issue that was flagged across the country, in fact, when we traveled. So even though the vote may go this time to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which is what I find is there among BJP voters, this is something that even the BJP feels that it needs to address. And in fact, in its manifesto, the implementation of the paper leak bill that was passed in the last parliament has been one of the important parts of the BJP's manifesto this time around. So this is something even BJP is very conscious about going into the election, and how the youth vote is also going to be interesting and important in terms of the outcomes of these elections. Now, the third category are the scheduled castes or Dalits. Now, quite early on in this election cycle, an issue had reared its head, and that was of reservations. Now, comments by BJP leaders like Anant Kumar Hegde in Karnataka and Jyoti Mirdha from Rajasthan was that, the NDA required a brute majority to bring in big changes in the constitution, and this was read as plans for a move to change the constitution with regard to reservations for scheduled castes. BJP leaders, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi, realized early on that this issue had gained traction. In fact, I think first 2 phases itself, the party had realized that, this was something that needed to be countered very, very strongly. But the pushback happened, as I said, after the first 2 phases of polling. It would be interesting to see if the outcomes of the elections are hit by this kind of this issue gaining traction in the early phases of polling. The other anxiety among the scheduled castes, especially in Uttar Pradesh, that I saw, especially when I visited Mathli Shahar, Jaunpur, these kind of areas, was the perceived decline of BSP. Because I didn't travel to Western UP, which is actually considered the stronghold of the BSP, but certainly there are a huge number of BSP voters in Eastern UP as well, which is where I went. Now, for long considered the party of the scheduled caste, especially the Jatav community, the BSP has not been able to explain fully why party chief Mayawati, who's former chief minister of Uttar Pradesh, felt the need to remove her nephew and heir Akash Anand from his role as coordinator for the party. And then she went and changed the candidate in Jaunpur. In fact, I was in Jaunpur just the day after Mayawati changed the candidate from Shrikala Reddy Singh, wife of gangster turned politician Dhananjay Singh, to Sham Singh Yadav, who was the sitting MP in that area. Not highly popular, not a fancy kind of winner in that seat, although Shrikala had great chances of winning. So this basically looked like a move that was aimed at making it easy for the BJP candidate Kripa Shankar Singh, an implant from Mumbai, to win that seat. Now, the Jata vote, loyal to the BSP, therefore, is therefore being seen as scattering, although opinion is divided where it might accrue, to the India bloc or to the BJP. And basically what has happened is that there is a lot of confusion among BSP voters. Astitva ki ladai is one word I heard a lot during my coverage there, that, you know, BSP's vote needs to be preserved even if the seats don't come out. So, you know, you kind of manage to hold on to your status as a national party. But also there is a lot of disappointment that if your party is not putting up a fight, why not go for somebody who is, whether you're BJP minded, somebody who's putting up a fight against the SP, or if you're not BJP minded, if you're against the BJP, then you kind of go to the other side. SP, BSP cadre have traditionally been at loggerheads in the countryside, but they did have an alliance in the last election. So the jury is still out on how this will pan out. Now, as the long election season moves on to its conclusion, these three mini narratives, in my view, have found their place in the midst of this overall story of the Lok Sabha elections of 2024. And I feel that this will determine who wins Delhi on June 4th. I hope you enjoyed this rather meandering episode. This is not a very explainer kind of episode with lots of points in it, but it's a bit of a slice of what I saw on the campaign trail. And I will be back next week with more on Indian politics, domestic politics. Until then, goodbye and thank you for watching.